teachers that are teaching it. Those
Yeah, but
that
see, yeah, that's where I think that it needs to shift, because you have professionals out in the industry. Like, you take me, and I have a whole curriculum created because in my other life I wanted to be a school teacher, because I would like
oh,
I'd be a kick butt school teacher, right? Like, I
do
would
they
be
let
like,
do they let y'all spank kids up there in Idaho?
listen, that's why I couldn't. I couldn't. I would be in the stupid superintendent's office all the time. Like, Deborah, you cannot slap them. You cannot hit them. You cannot tell them they're stupid. You can't. That I would be trouble. But I do have this whole curriculum, and it's just like kind of like the life game. Every day you come to school, you get a certain paycheck. And then based off of this card you pull, you're going to be able to have your life experiences roll out in front of you. Some of you are going to be poor. Some of them are going to be rich. Some of them are going to be middle class. And through the whole semester, it's this whole curriculum of how to survive in life in kind of a real world situation. Why do we hold our hats so much on a 4-year certificate for somebody who has written papers for a year? I looked at what you do to get your education certificate. It's good. There's nothing wrong with it, but I, I can do that. Like, I don't need to write a report about who Abraham Lincoln was to be able to teach a second grader how to color in the lines. Like,
Correct.
it doesn't make any sense to me. So I don't understand why, as the state level, we can't shift it and we pull in a mortgage person to come teach about mortgages.
Mm-hmm.
We pull in a mortgage person to come teach somebody how to establish credit. We pull in a financial planner to teach them how to put money in charities, put money in 401ks, retirement planning, bring a banker in and have them teach about the importance of identity protection. I mean, it's just like, why couldn't you break these semesters up to 6-week little increments and bring the professionals in with a little bit of a vetting process?
Well, I mean, I think that you shed a lot of light to many different points within what you just said. Number one, turn it into a game that actually gives more than just a reward or a prize, because it can be applicable to their daily life as they get older. Give them a budget. Matter of fact, start with everybody. We're going to put a bunch of careers in a bucket or in a hat. Come up and pick your career. That's what your career is going to be for the next month.
Yeah.
And every 2 weeks, you're going to get a paycheck. And that paycheck is going to be intended for you to pay your bills. Now, what bills do you have? Nobody has any bills day one. But where are you going to live?
Yeah, they do.
How are you going to eat?
They have Uncle Sam and FICA.
Oh, for sure. There you go. Yes. And it doesn't necessarily have to go as complicated as that day one, but it can get to that if you treat it like a game. And then from that concept, bring in the different trades and different careers like you're talking about to so that they can take what they've learned and who they've chosen or picked for their month and tie it to something that's actually tangible and relatable. And maybe kids will start picking careers earlier in their adolescence versus waiting until they're 30 to go, I wonder what I want to do when I grow up.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well,
At
if their
least
friend,
if you've got an extravagant lifestyle or you like to spend and buy things when you're 13 years old, maybe you should be looking into a career not of a teacher type concept.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. There are obviously perks to doing some of those jobs. Like, you look at police officers and some of those, they have an early retirement tag on them. Like, they're retired at 50 or something, or they're thrown into a desk job and they've got, I think, decent pensions, decent benefits, those kind of stuff. I certainly hope so, for the kind of misery they have in life to deal with what they do in those public callings. But yeah, but then you also have some people who just don't care. Some people just want to live that lower end lifestyle and they don't want anything more. But some people don't know anything different. So you have these kids that maybe come from a really, really, really broken home, a really disturbed home, and they could be a brain surgeon. But as far as they know, they're going to be living in a single wide trailer in this trailer park, and they're going to have to duct tape their cars back together because that's all mom and dad have ever taught them. So how do we speak to all of those kids and say, listen, you could, with that brain of yours, become a brain surgeon? And same with the other kid that's living off his dad's trust fund.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Dude, Dad's trust fund is great, but get off your butt and learn something. Do something
I
more.
agree.
So,
and it also begs the question, and I'm looking at this ChatGPT response over here, and just number one almost puts a big gap or big hole in the concept of schooling and what they're going through. Is the entire system broken? And what I mean by that is curriculum priorities. Education system often prioritizes traditional academic subjects such as math, science, literature, history over practical life skills like financial literacy. This is partly due to standardized testing and college preparation focuses, which emphasize these core subjects. Well, if they're trying to get them ready for college, isn't college supposed to be getting them ready for real life?
yeah.
And essentially, the gauge on that is some test versus the application of what you've learned thus far in the real world. I think could that lead the question of, is the entire system just broken?
Well, we know the answer to that. It is broke.
Of course.
And you look at this just like you just pulled up that screen of ChatGPT. If I need to write a report about the Mayflower coming across the ocean, I'm not looking at an encyclopedia anymore. You and I had to go to the library and get an encyclopedia.
That's
and
right.
We had to research all that. And we had to reference page 347, bullet point 4, and all that crap.
Yep.
Like to write a resume right now, to write a grant. I helped one of our city officials see what you could do with AI and writing a grant. We were sitting in a planning and zoning meeting, and I said, they're like, we've got to find ourselves a good grant writer. I'm like, you've got it. Look at ChatGPT. Let's look at it. What grant do you want? And I jumped on my system and I said, we want to write a grant for this playground equipment or whatever it was. And it said, who am I writing it to? Like, I'm writing whatever company it was. ChatGPT had it written in a second. Okay, so if you look at the school systems, do we need to know how to write those things to get an A+ and a red markup of a teacher reading that? No.
Matter of fact, do we even need that teacher to grade those anymore when they can actually just throw it into a system and it gives them the results? And I think that our teaching, our curriculum, like we're talking about, is behind the time of, or not keeping up with what we have access to. Because just like you said a moment ago, and to show that as an example to the folks that are listening and talking, can you write me a quick report based on the Mayflower?
That's super important.
Using references to show your work. Boom. This took me what used to take us probably a week to go to the library, find the actual books that we needed, references, then to go and write it, make sure that we are spell check it, make sure it's in the right person or right this that the teacher is requiring at the time. Literally was just written and is still being written at the moment. Here's the references. And if you wanted it to be 3 pages long, tell it to do it 3 pages.
And a word count. Word count's going to be there too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's more shaped, or should be more shaped, to the future of what we have. Because let's face it, with this type of technology, it's not going to stop. I always use this reference. We don't go into the iPhone store and ask for a model behind. It's always the next new model. Yeah. So if we're on the path of eventually, we're not even going to have to talk to communicate. We will be able to read each other's mind.
That's
Do we
scary.
really need to know how to spell anymore? I don't know. I don't know how to spell now, and I get by.
Nobody should read what's in this mind. No bueno. No bueno. Okay, so the reason why, like from a mortgage professional standpoint, those that are listening are probably like, great, this is great. Why do you care about the education system? How many on a percentage, and I'll give you mine, how many conversations do you have during a week that people are like, well, no, I don't have credit scores, or yeah, I do have credit scores, and they are, how many?
Absolutely.
What's your percentage?
I would say at minimum 50-50 of what we pull every day.
I think the number's higher. I think the number's higher.
Probably is.
Uneducated. And then you've got people who are going to the internet and they're asking, what's the best thing for me to do with a credit card? And you've got somebody giving you an answer of max it out so you can show your credit scores you're making payments. Oh, no, don't put any balance on it at all. Oh, but if you don't put a balance on it, it doesn't know that it's there. You got 4 different answers that are
and
all
which one's right.
Correct. Yeah, like, okay. So if you've got somebody that can actually go in and teach the curriculum and say, okay, this is our interpretation of how you establish a credit report. Could it be better for you to have 25% on your credit card instead of 10? Sure. But at the end of the day, you established a credit line. You understand how to pay that credit card balance. You understand how to make a monthly payment. You understood the importance of protecting your social security number, the importance of not getting more than you can handle on payments. Like all of that was taught. And who necessarily cares about the logistics of the 10 or the 25 or the 50 or the 100? You established a line of credit. You understand how credit works. So we've got to shift the mindset of our legislation to stop worrying about writing reports about the Mayflower. I don't think parallelogram season in geometry needs to go away. I think that it's still critical for us to have the diversification, because how do you figure out if you're going to be a NASA person if you don't know if you love math? Okay, so you've got to have those kind of things. But I don't know if you have it in Texas, but we have tech school here in our area.
We do too, yeah.
That a tech high school. So their first curriculum is a welding class, an auto body class, or whatever, and their English classes kind of take a second priority, which we used to call them when I was in high school auto body duds, and Chris was an auto body dud, so I could call him that. And,
shop kid, that's right.
Yeah, and I mean they were mullets and thugs, like they looked like rough, but boy, they could paint a beautiful car. They didn't care about writing report.
Those same kids that we called what we did were the ones that were skipped college and already starting to make money for themselves. And you look back and you go, wait a minute, most of those people have their own business now doing that trade or craft. So it begs that question of, like you said, definitely it's something that the curriculum and legislation needs to adopt. But even deeper, to prove the point, is the answer to most of these questions that we're discussing here, like credit literacy, knowing what to do once you're actually in a job, has all to do with education. That's one of the answers that I get from anybody. Well, why is this person's credit score? Well, obviously they weren't educated on that at home. You look, matter of fact, I'll even go deeper. If we split it up based on demographics, the Black Hispanic community is lower average credit scores. Why? Because the generation before didn't teach them the literacy or didn't know the literacy. The Caucasian, they do and know how important it is. The Asian, same thing, they do and they know how important it is. Well, if everyone is getting that basic concept of financial literacy and applying it in the game format like you're talking about, wouldn't that lead to people being more intrigued about it, more aware of it when they're going through life from grade 1 moving forward? I also like your concept of, and I believe this is how it should go moving forward, but it probably won't, which is at an early age, start pigeonholing the people that believe that they're better suited for something different into those lines. Like, there's no need for you to be working on this if you're not going to be that type of profession. I'm not saying you don't need to know those things, but it's almost redundant grade 1 through something that they're teaching the same stuff over and over. It's like, okay, why do you think kids say school is boring or they're not learning anything? Well, it's because we're going through the motions. We're not giving them anything of substance that they can apply. How many times did you say growing up, oh my God, when am I really going to use algebra in real life? Well, chances are
we do use algebra. We do.
We do.
You got to say geometry. We use algebra in our industry, so you can't beat up algebra. You have to beat up geometry. Choose geometry. When am I going to use geometry?
I use algebra because most people say that and don't realize that they're actually using algebra, because when they teach algebra, they don't give you an equation that's applicable to real life. So you get out, or while you're learning it, you're going, I don't need this. So you don't pay attention. Then when real life hits you, you're like, shit, what did they say about that algebra concept?
Yeah.
It was there all along.
You look at, I mean, could you imagine if we sat in a classroom and taught somebody, hey, do you want to figure out your down payment on, you want to buy a house that's $400,000? What's your down payment going to be if it's a 20% down payment? And they solve all out. And I get to tell them, you just solved for A times B, A divided by B, whatever equals C. It's algebra. I mean, it would just be like, oh, wow, all of a sudden, maybe, do we need trigonometry and some of those things? I don't know. I don't think so.
That's more of an advanced concept. You're right.
Yeah, but your basics. But you know what's crazy? Because you think, though, how many kids as juniors in high school, seniors in high school, that they were put in a position that they had to take some of these real world scenario classes and actually dive into this stuff. And you have 4 or 5 kids in that classroom that are just straight up punks. They're smoking pot in the parking lot, they whatever, but they're extremely good rebuilding a motor. Could you imagine if you sat them in a class and said, okay, Billy Joe Bob over here, you've got this long hair and you're hunched over with your sweatshirt on and you don't want to talk to anybody. What is your dream? Well, my dream is to own a diesel mechanic shop. Okay. Why? Well, because my grandpa used to do that. My dad used to do that. Okay. Well, then let's teach you how to build yourself a shop. And all of a sudden that hood comes off and they're engaged to you.
Yes, ma'am.
And they're like, oh, wait a minute. A diesel mechanic's not a crappy job. I'm not going to be looked down. No, dude, you're running yourself a business. Let's teach you how to strategically file your taxes. Let's get our CPAs in here and let's teach you how to make your money, keep your money, pay your taxes, and be an honest dude. And let's get you out of high school with the right tools to build credit, to file taxes, and to build your diesel mechanic shop. And now while we have these people being pulled out of these terrible paths because we just gave them a beautiful path forward.
Furthermore, that trade that we were talking about won't continue to be viewed upon as this downfall in characteristic flaw, so to speak, more so as a, wow, you picked your profession, go be the best at it that you can.
Yeah.
Instead of people starting that same literal moment in that aha moment of this is what I want to do in life, waiting until they're 20 something, doing it earlier. It's like, why are we wasting so much time? I think we know the answer to that. It's all money behind the scene and politics and all of those things. But at a certain point, and I think it's coming to a head, which is the idea of go to school, make good grades, go to college, the college piece is becoming very disconnected from the norm that we're seeing. The facade of going to college and people getting out and actually getting a job that pays is diminishing year over year. So at a certain point, are we going to have enough people that fill these colleges? And at what point will they change their MO?
Yeah. Yeah. And there's definitely obviously a place for all those. I ran into a gal this morning at the grocery store and her son graduated with my son and he's headed to go work for NASA. He's working, getting his master something, engineering, something, big words. And you just knew that. When I knew that kid, I Facebook stalk him because I'm just like, that dude's going somewhere. That dude is going somewhere. And that's his cup of tea. But then we also have people that I run into, they work at the grocery store and they're just as happy as can be to just be chit-chatting with people all day, bagging their groceries, you know? Yeah. So I think that there's a shift that could happen. My big beef that I have is how many people come into my office and they're not educated and then I have to fix it. Not a problem to fix it, but they've missed out on opportunities. They've missed out on those lower rates. They've missed out on those lower price homes. They've missed out because they have not been educated. And it drives me absolutely batty because a credit bureau can be damaged in a day. And Correct. It would take you a year
to one decision. Yep.
And
you're exactly right.
And they're wrong. They're wrong. They didn't make the payment. They're wrong. They got that credit card and maxed it out. Whatever. I'm not saying that they're not wrong. I'm just saying the damage is done. How do we stop them from doing it? You know?
Well, I mean, even taking it one step further based on what you're saying, because I do a whole lot of advising, just like you're saying, this is what we need to do to fix the credit for the moment. And I say for the moment because you or I really don't know after we originate that loan, give them the keys to the house, if they're just going to go back to their old ways and make sure to pay their mortgage.
Yeah.
That's the tough thing, because that lesson was never really earned or gained. It was more so a Band-Aid for the situation. We hope that they learn from that. Hey, now you've got decent credit. Go refinance your cars. Go refinance everything to get yourself back on track. Or a lot of things that I'm seeing right now is pulling cash out or selling your current, taking the equity, paying off all of your debt to start fresh or a reset in your new property. Is it just going to go back to the way things were by getting in credit card debt and everything else, because we're creatures of habit?
Yeah. Well, and that is definitely something to talk about, is the cash out refinance thing. Is it needs to be discussed, because everybody, what do they call it? House prison?
Poor.
Well, no,
house
like
poor.
that they're stuck in their house payment, their house interest rate. There was a term that was floating around, because their rates are so low. They are a prisoner to that loan they're in, because they're 2.5% to 3.5% interest rate. Like, we're not going to give that up for 6. Hey, but you've got $50,000 worth of credit card debt that's at 18 to 30% interest. Let us calculate what that looks like. I bet the effective rate on that thing is in the teens.
Much higher, yeah.
So, and you're never going to see the end of that credit card debt. Okay, so let's take that $100,000 worth of equity. Let's get rid of that $50,000 credit card debt, grab a 6.5% to 7% rate, chillax, and just let your finances catch up, because, oh my gosh, the credit card debt is out of control. And we're watching that in our economic reports. Is people are running out of money. All the stimulus money, the savings accounts, that money is gone soon. And people are just swiping. And
you're on the money.
Stop. Don't lose your house. Don't ruin your credit. Utilize your equity, and then don't do it again. But I mean, good luck for us.
But then that and that in itself is what circles this whole conversation back to the creatures of habit and the root cause, and how do we fix it at the ground level or at the root level, which is teaching it, but teaching it effectively and efficiently in schools. I think your idea should be taken up all the way to Congress. We should make a board game better than life. Matter of fact, we call it Better Than Life. And
it's built, Mark. It's built. I already have it built. It's all ready to go. I just need the little certificate to go, save one person at a time. Yeah.
I hear, boom. So many do not know, but there is a running clock, so to speak, or gauge, real time on the United States national debt. And if I zoom into this bad boy, we are looking at 34, trillion dollars in debt that is just continuing to rise at an astronomical pace. Obviously, what I've studied thus far is the inflation is actually what's saving us from this, because it's lowering the value of our dollar, and eventually it will kind of run off. So it's a back end game that the United States is playing, and it almost goes against what we're trying to help fix. It's like, well, if you teach them that in schools, then they'll obviously know that this inflation is intended to cure the nation's debt, not their debt.
Well, there's your problem right there. That's why they're not teaching it. Oh wait, we're not going to talk about politics. That's a bad subject.
Okay. So it's dangerous to know too much also.
Yeah. Well, I think that those of us that are in the seats that know what we know, I think we need to open our mouths and start pushing just a little bit harder. Could you imagine if I was the state superintendent of the school districts? That'd be so cool. But I also checked into that, and you have to have a teaching degree and a master's and probably a doctorate. I don't remember, but
they couldn't pay you enough.
Yeah, but I would have unlimited amount of word vomits could come out. And
how about this crazy concept? What if teachers had an actual stake in their students' potential success? Meaning, all right, I get 0.5% on your whatever you make moving forward in life,
royalties off your career.
Yes. Like, holy cow. Do you think that they would step up their game at that point?
Yeah,
it's
but
coming from the people that are
actually making money. Oh man, our poor teachers though. I look at some of the stuff that they have to deal with and
I get it. But the ones that do extremely well would make up for that lack thereof. Just ideas that obviously will never happen. But if we had a perfect world, it'd be one of them.
Yeah. Well, I think that I think the big thing is let's don't not ask questions. You know, if you're a school or administrator or whatever, and you think we're cool and you're listening to this, invite us to come teach your class. Yeah. I think that would be cool. I mean, I look at the professionals. If that was lined up as a semester, I would go teach for a week. If I had a week, I could teach credit, how to prepare for a mortgage, all of that. You don't need a lot of time. You need people to engage, and in engaging, you need
buy-in.
You need to touch everybody in their position that they're in. You need the NASA guy, and you need the guy who's perfectly content to work at the gas station, and everybody in between. So
I agree. And we have these conversations. We're not going to solve the world's problems, but at least some of the things that we talk about can get others to radiate to others, and it just maybe trickles up instead of down.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, there's so much opportunity if you stay ahead of the game in regards to credit, savings, understanding the dollar. You don't have to dive into the nuts and bolts of the U.S. That U.S. crap you just showed. I mean, that just
that nuts. Yeah, it gives me anxiety just looking at it.
Yeah, I'm glad I didn't know about that. I have no intention of looking up that website ever, ever, ever.
Well, I mean, like I said, we're not going to solve the world's problems, but those of you that have opinions or solutions or potential feedback, put it in the comments. Share this. Get it to somebody that can actually make a difference.
Yep.
Because we're not seeing the steps being taken. They say crawl before you walk before you run, etc. But nobody's crawling to get this one changed.
They're in wheelchairs. They didn't even start out. They're just in a wheelchair.
Yep. That's exactly right. Good way to look.
Well, I think that everybody's going to be glad we're back.
Absolutely. Superman and Wonder Woman, we're ready.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's awesome. I guess we'll come up with something next week to talk about, and we're back, and it's going to be awesome.
I love it. It is awesome. Okay, good deal.
Have a good week.
We're back, bitches. Just kidding. Bye.
Okay, bye.